The final stage of 2023 politics is about to begin. A candidate for judge is in the House, and there are two fantastic nonprofit organizations doing great things in the city. I'm going to introduce you to both of them. Roll it, Kyle. Can y'all believe it's November already? Where has this year gone? Man. Let's talk a little bit about politics. John Couvillon with JMC Analytics is here. And here we go. The runoffs are about to begin. Not very many of them. Been kind of a stale political cycle as it goes, meaning that it's not been as nasty as we've seen in the past. So let's talk about what we can expect during this runoff cycle.
So basically, the primary season was very low wattage and late developing. I'm expecting more of the same for the runoff.
Okay.
In fact, with early voting set to start tomorrow, I don't think I've seen a single political ad. So what I think is going to happen is, while turnout was an abysmal 36% in the primary, I'm thinking 25 to 30, if even that, in the runoff.
25 to 30%
Statewide.
Statewide. All right, so let's talk about these legislative races that are on the ballot. Most of them, as we were talking about before we started the show, are here in the Capital Region. What about it?
So what's interesting is that we have 2 state Senate runoffs and 18 state House runoffs. 7 of those 18 are here in the Baton Rouge media market. A couple of them are very interesting in that they do have a rarity in Louisiana, which is genuine party competition. So House District 68, where Belinda Davis is facing off against Republican Dixon McMakin. House District 70, where Republican incumbent Barbara Freiberg is facing Democrat Steve Myers. Those are 2 genuine two-party competitive districts.
Okay.
But yes, 7 of them are in the Baton Rouge media market, so hopefully that will help with turnout, maybe a percentage point or 2.
Why do you think the money was a little bit dry this cycle?
I think what's happening with the money is that, in my opinion, it's fairly controversial, but in my opinion, I think you have this misbegotten notion that you need to wait until the final minute to campaign or advertise. The reason I'm saying that is a mistake is, do you know that in the primaries, 34% of the vote was cast early? So basically, if you're waiting until the last week to do your introduction to the voters, you've already missed out on the third of the voters, and you don't know under what knowledge and or what circumstances they picked their candidate.
So, you know, there was a feeling of inevitability in the governor's race that either it was going to be an outright win or win in the runoff by Jeff Landry. And I wondered what that did for people's confidence about turning out. It's like, you expect the guy to win. Well, he's not on the ballot for the runoff, and you're talking about 25 to 30%. So then what race is the hottest on the ballot, or the one that you say this will get people out?
To tell you the truth, none of them.
Okay.
As much as it's politically incorrect to say so, given that the 3 statewide offices on the ballot are not getting any advertising and very minimal attention, probably the best of the 3, and that's not saying very much, but the best of the 3 perhaps would be the Secretary of State's runoff, just because in the aftermath of the 2020 elections, election fraud is the topic du jour. And so now what used to be kind of a low-key office suddenly is kind of the topic of conspiracy theorists and or people who may be concerned about how elections are conducted.
Bat, you know what, crazy. I tell you what, it's so, you know, we're going to talk to Twin Judge here in just a moment in the next segment about her race. So what is your advice to candidates now as they move into these last few days to make certain that they're reaching their number?
Right. Now, tell you the truth, that's the kind of question that really should have been asked a couple weeks ago, but nevertheless, I'll take the ball as it's been served.
All right.
So given the fact that you have a third of the vote that's being cast early, you have to think of this in terms of 3 election days. Number 1, when the mail-in ballots have gone out, which in this case, most likely they already have for the runoff.
Right.
Number 2, early voting, which starts tomorrow. You have to think of that election day number 2 as a series of 7 election days. Number 3, election day itself. In other words, you can't take your foot off the gas or put all of your chips into November 18th. You have to start thinking of all elections all the time for this runoff.
You know, ground game is always so important. And campaigns that my company's worked with in years gone by is like, you got to touch people, and you can't just trust one medium as the go-to. People, it used to be just television. You got to get on
Right.
television. It's like, well, so few people watch anything live anymore.
Right.
And you got to get out in front of them. And you're talking about that turnout being as low as it's going to be. What's the biggest don't? The thing you would say, don't do this.
Do not overdo voter contact. I'll give you a perfect example, and I'll use an extreme case. Imagine if you've got this bright idea that if you think that one text to voters on election day was a good idea, that 10 texts will be 10 times as good. No.
No, that's actually good.
The
Don't
law
do
of
that.
diminishing returns, because one thing I think that's important, it's kind of antiquated and cheesy to say so, but I'll say it anyway, respect the voter. Do not act like they have nothing but time for your message. Make it short, sweet, to the point, and only do 1 or 2 times, but certainly don't flood them.
All right. Well, when this whole thing is over with, we'll come back and talk about what's next, because Landry's put together his transition team. He's still adding names to it, so we hadn't had a chance to talk about that, and I want to pick your brain about that too.
It'll be interesting, yes.
JMC Analytics, look him up, guys. Great information, a fantastic pollster as well. All right, Colette Jackson is going to be here with us on set to talk about her candidacy for judge next.